Yeah, here we are. The Dems are searching for a liberal Joe Rogan. Democrats throw money at a problem, countering GOP clout online. At private gatherings, strategists and donors are swapping ideas to help the party capture the digital mojo that helped President Trump win. Yes, there's a price tag. And the person they have on here is Brian Tyler Cohen. Brian Tyler Cohen, alongside some of these other content creators, who I have no issue with for the record, are a part of the party apparatus. And they actually do get a lot of play online. They get a lot of motion online. Having said that, I don't think that they have the same level of prominence as a figure like Joe Rogan. I don't even like the fact that they're just like looking for a liberal Joe Rogan or a left's Joe Rogan. The issue here is the Democratic Party doesn't want to change its ways. They just want someone to defend the Democrats. And anyone that is a party loyalist like that is not going to come across as a unique, organic voice in non-mainstream circles. A lot of these guys, for example, are noticeably absent from the conversation of Israel. And the reason why they're noticeably absent from the conversation of Israel and Gaza, or the genocide of Gaza and the genocide of Palestinians, is because they're party loyalists. They are already serving that role. More money to them and more prominence to them is not going to make up for the environment that the Democrats cannot capture. Even money to me, or Chapo Trap House, or any number of different actually leftist, outside of the scope of the party content creators, is not actually going to change the dynamic, because the issue here is the party. The issue here is the lack of interest in addressing people's real problems. So if the party doesn't change, no amount of influence peddling is going to change the way people see the party. As I've said over and over again, the Democrats have an issue. They cannot podcast their way out of this issue. I said no amount of dollars spent will be as successful as directly advocating for all Americans' material interests, anti-war, free healthcare, college education, jobs programs, and public housing. If mainstream media failed, how will podcasts make Dems cool with the current smug technocratic gerontocracy? It's not going to work. Giving a bunch of TikTokers $100,000 to make podcasts promoting small business-focused tax cuts in underserved neighborhoods, as long as they promise never to boycott Israel, is not going to move the needle. Actually, that's not even true. They will move the needle. It's just not enough. Because a lot of the problem here is that, like, people find themselves organically in the throes of reactionary politics. Joe Rogan didn't become a party loyalist. Joe Rogan still criticizes the Republican Party in ways that if you criticize the Democratic Party, you're out of this list, right? The Republicans don't give a shit about the criticisms of the party coming from guys like this, because they recognize the importance of being on platforms such as Joe Rogan's platform, being associated with them positively. The Democratic Party presents itself in a very smug, entitled, annoying, elitist, technocratic fashion, and it does not appeal to the average person. At least these guys look at the Republicans and they're like, well, they'll let me be annoying and even say slurs every now and then without giving me a goddamn lecture. So I guess I find myself a little bit more on their side. This is a major issue. If a progressive Joe Rogan existed, they'd be exiled by the Democratic Party, which is incapable of receiving criticism. Obvious examples are Biden's age in Gaza. Yeah, this is why so many people present me as like an alternative to this, where they're like, well, there is a fucking left Joe Rogan. His name is Hasan Piker. There's been a fucking million different articles written about it. And what do I always say in those articles, seemingly to deaf ears? There is no podcasting your way out of this problem. You have to be able to respond to the organic resentment and disdain that your base of voters have for a lot of the issues that you present, a lot of the policies that you present. As I've said time and time again, I would love to be the propaganda minister of a Democratic Party that is invested in fighting for American workers. But until the Democratic Party changes and becomes that party, I will not be its propaganda minister. As I've said time and time again throughout the election, I cannot outflank the Democratic Party. There is no reason, there's no way to offer people the policies that they want to hear from the Democrats, while the Democrats are spending billions of dollars saying, no, we're against that, actually. I can't just sit there and be like, Kamala Harris is anti-war. Trust me, she's amazing. She wants to end all wars, as a matter of fact. And then she goes on the DNC last night and says, I want a lethal military. I want the most lethal military America's ever had.
As Commander-in-Chief, I will ensure America always has the strongest, most lethal fighting force in the world.
The Democrats are not looking to solve a real problem. They're just looking to market themselves better. That's it. They're looking to market the same dog shit product that they have that people have said no to over and over again. They're looking for new ways to put a new coat of paint, a new shinier coat of paint on the same dookie. And that's not going to work. It's still dookie. It still smells like dookie. It looks like dookie. It's dookie. That's why this is a fruitless endeavor.
Casters as the new establishment that helped elect President Trump and saying Kamala 2024 run. But one of the comedians they interviewed is laughing off that idea.
Do you feel like you're part of a new establishment that's being created?
I don't think I'm part of a new establishment. If the idea is that me and a few comedians have more power than multi-billionaires, huge media institutions, a whole political party apparatus, I just don't think most people are going to buy that. I think it seems like a great way to excuse running an unpopular candidate on a platform that American people weren't sold on.
Very interesting. Greg, do you think Democrats are still missing the point?
I haven't seen Tim Dillon cook that hard. That's crazy. That's like shocking. That was wild.
Joe Rogan was not born in a political lab. He's an original. He's authentic. He's got a brain like you. Like nobody can copy you, Greg. You cannot have a copy of Joe Rogan.
No, here's the deal. Democrats should watch the Tim Dillon interview by the CNN reporter, Ellie Reeves, I think. Because you'll see two different mindsets, and the reporter is trapped in.
Because you don't watch him, Tim has always said that type of stuff about media and politics. Yeah, I just think it's like weird that he's so aligned with some of the biggest, grossest freaks. That's the only thing. Like a guy who makes a tremendous amount of content around, the philic elite has no issues having Kevin Spacey do the introduction to his fucking Netflix comedy special. Like, that's crazy. I don't understand it. And I know Tim knows who I am. I know. And we are in alignment on a lot of stuff. I just don't get some of the stuff that he does where I'm like, the fuck are you doing?
So, Shannon, I mean, the Democrats are thinking that maybe it was their social media presence that didn't win them the elections. But Joe Rogan said they had him until they didn't.
And if it's about who's out there shilling for you, the former vice president, had the biggest stars in all of culture. I mean, when you've got Oprah and Beyonce and all these people showing up for you, if that didn't work, that's not going to solve the problem. There's this Democratic data firm today called Catalyst that put out all of these terrible numbers of what happened to Democrats in the fall. They lost with younger voters, men, voters of color, infrequent voters. They said the results were so bad that for the first time since they've been crunching all this data, that younger, infrequent, and new voters who tend to shift to Democrats, they were at less than 50%.
I mean, she's right, by the way. People are going, Oprah. Dude, this is why I laugh whenever a dumb like Ethan try to be like, Hasan is the reason why Kamala Harris lost. That is the absolute dumbest position. When dumb like Ethan or any number of different dumb are like, oh, Hasan, are you happy you caused Kamala Harris to lose? Do they not understand that Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala Harris? Do they think I have more power than Taylor Swift? It's not even just the fact that old media no longer has the same relevance as new media. This is true. New media has a lot more relevance. But the point I was trying to make with my tweet was exactly this, which is that if the multi-billion-dollar apparatus of mainstream media that is slanted towards liberalism cannot carry the Democrats across the finish line, and that does overall have a lot more power and prominence. Legacy media does have a lot more power and prominence than, the podcast orbit or whatever. If they can't do this, why the would a couple podcasters be able to change that? You do, man. Who gives a their political opinion? No, you are deluding yourself. I'm not saying I have no influence. I'm saying that I cannot outflank the Democratic Party's positions. And the very fact that they're out there looking for a liberal Joe Rogan, when in fact Joe Rogan was the liberal Joe Rogan, and they fucking yelled at him for being the liberal Joe Rogan who endorsed Bernie Sanders, and they also yelled at Bernie Sanders, should clue you in on some of the major failures of the party in the way that they communicate. They consistently go in the reactionary slant after elections on issues that they are actually supposed to combat on. They don't know how to fight back on issues like trans issues, for example. They don't know how to actively fight back on shit like this. The real way to deal with trans issues is to deflect away and recognize it as the distraction that it actually is, the red herring that it actually is. The method is simple. I say it all the time. I told Theo Von this as well when we had that conversation. He was blown away by it, where he's like, I never thought about it like that. When I said your landlord is not a Guatemalan migrant, your boss is not a trans person. These are the real people that are and the real systems that are causing harm in your life. And the Republicans do a very good job of taking all that resentment that you experience on a daily fucking basis, going through the trials and tribulations of being a fucking cog in the machine of capitalism, and they turn around and present much more vulnerable enemies to distract you away from the real problem, the super wealthy and corporations. It's the structural problems that we must clear, but the Democrats never address those structural inequalities and instead play this like incredibly weird role where even when they are defending certain marginalized identities, they do it in this like incredibly cynical fashion where it's just a deflective shield, just like Israel says, you know, you're anti-Semitic if you criticize Israel. Democrats will be like, oh, I guess you're transphobic. I guess you're homophobic. I guess you're racist for hating the Democratic Party. And then you ask them if you're gay or trans or a migrant or related to undocumented migrants. You're like, well, what are you doing for them? They go, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up and vote for us. What a stupid way to try and win support. It's insane. For the past couple of decades, they've just simply adopted the framework of you have to vote for us or else the alternative is significantly worse. And while the alternative is significantly worse, more and more people will go, all right, I'm still not voting. Fuck you. And there's nothing you can do about it. All right, let's hear what Tim Dillon is saying.
I ask because
Yeah.
do you feel like you're part of a new establishment that's being created?
I don't think I'm part of a new establishment. I think it would be pretty difficult to look at these podcasts. I know it's a popular thing right now, especially in certain media circles, to say that after running an incredibly unpopular candidate who was introduced very late in the race because an elderly man who could not be the president, who everyone told was functioning as the president for 4 years, decided to, this wind is wild, huh?
Yeah.
See? But this was a very specific circumstance in which Kamala Harris ran for the presidency.
Yeah.
She was somewhat unpopular, and she was not a star in Democratic politics before this at all. And her communication strategy was pretty weak. I think most people have admitted that. So to hang this defeat all on a few podcasts and to say that they were the problem, I just don't buy the narrative. So I don't think I'm a new establishment. If you weigh, again, a few comedians with podcasts versus all of the people that supported Kamala Harris, you know, Democrat donors, billionaires, big people. If the idea is that me and a few comedians have more power than multi-billionaires, huge media institutions, a whole political party apparatus, I just don't think most people are going to buy that. I think it seems like a great way to excuse running an unpopular candidate on a platform that American people weren't sold on. So the idea that like the power that Theo Von has would be equal to like the intelligence agencies or these massive legacy media institutions seems crazy.
But you got way more audience than when you're saying we don't have power, we're not the CIA. Well, you know, there's some gradations between that, and also I'm sure there's like.
Well, just you use the word.
I don't think he's wrong And by the way, he has every opportunity here to puff his chest and flex about the unprecedented amount of influence that he has, just as I do when all these same exact media operations are coming to me being like, oh, you're the left's Joe Rogan. Like, you're the left's Joe Rogan. But he's not wrong. He's not wrong when he says, like, yes, they have influence. Same with myself as well. But like, no one here is a fucking kingmaker, because at the end of the day, you still have to look at the goddamn parties. You have to look at the parties and the policy and the way that they present themselves. It's not just a messaging issue. If every single podcaster here, great example for you. If every single podcaster tomorrow, alongside myself, we all got together. I know all these people. I communicate with all these people. And I somehow got all of them to literally ride for Jill Stein. Do you think Jill Stein makes it out as a third-party candidate? Do you think the entirety of the podcast circle getting together and backing Jill Stein would have actually made Jill Stein win a single fucking state? One state. I'm willing to bet that not a single state would be won by Jill Stein and the Green Party. And we don't even have to entertain this idea. Joe Rogan at his peak, far more powerful and prominent than he is now, endorsed Bernie Sanders. So did I. Did that move the needle? No, it didn't. You cannot outflank the goddamn parties and the message that they're putting out there. Just like no matter how many great policies the Democrats were to even present, if Joe Biden was the guy, it was a bridge too far for many Americans. They were like, nope, he's too old. Another Tim Dillon clip. Okay.
All those people who had the left-wing shows like Amy Schumer and Michelle Wolf, Samantha Bee, those have all been canceled. All those shows are canceled.
Well, but there'll be new ones. There'll be new ones. I mean, do you not have the faith? Do you think there's going to be no left-wing comedy?
I don't see like a little ecosystem or like a galaxy.
There's a galaxy.
World,
there's
right?
An establishment.
There's Rogan, and there's all this stuff.
I mean, is Trevor Noah not popular? He does arenas.
He's an
arena comedian. He's one of the most popular comedians in the country. HasanAbi, Ronnie Chang, these guys are all left-wing, and they're all really funny, really popular comics who I'm friends with and like.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I don't think this thing's happening. Whatever everyone thinks happening, I don't think it's happening.
Yeah, I don't think Tim is wrong on this. I'm not going to lie. I think he's right. No, I don't think he's wrong. There are a ton of, I mean, he's wrong when he says like Trevor Noah is really funny, but that's besides the point. Like, there are incredibly famous left-wing comedians out there. Bill Burr is probably the greatest comedian of our generation, consistent. He is the most left-wing comic out there. What the fuck are we talking about?
Is happening. This idea that like left-wing like where are they? Where are they to be found? Where's Amy Schumer? I don't know. She's in her $15 million townhouse in Brooklyn. I think she'll be okay. I will text a few of them and go, people are worried about you.
Okay.
I think they're okay.
The idea that Stavi's going to save the Dem Party is this collective cope that comes from the fact that nobody believes that the Dem Party is capable of changing. Yeah, also, people like myself or people like Stavros or even like other comics, for example, I'm not saying I am a comedian, but like media personalities that have a political idea are not going to stand aside and turn around and be like, we love the Dems. Yeah. Amy Schumer's a great example of this because she is a Democratic Party mouthpiece. Ain't nobody gives a f about what Amy Schumer has to say about politics. Amy Schumer's not left-wing, but she is definitely a Democrat. I mean, she's literally related to Chuck Schumer. Ironically enough, if their hyper-focus is about getting media prominence, perhaps they should focus on some of the most outspoken media that covers the Democrats in a negative fashion, myself included, and take notes from what our commentary revolves around and then change their policies in that direction, because I think that would be more impactful for the Democratic Party's future prospects. Because I think people like myself or people like Bill Burr or any number of different fucking like independent media outlets that do criticize the Democratic Party are unironically closer to the people's demands than the fucking DC media bubble that they are invested in. And the polls show this reality. I mean, everybody hates the Republicans, but god damn, they even hate the Democrats more. And the reason why they hate the Democrats is because the Democratic Party's base hates the Democrats. At least the Republicans' base likes the Republicans, but the Dem base doesn't like the Democrats right now. one must ask the question, why? I'm sorry, but if you're getting outflanked by a podcaster that was literally invited to the fucking inauguration on the issue of Israel.
You know, I wanted to say something. There's been something that's just been kind of on my heart, and so I feel like I should bring it up. There's a conflict that's been happening in the Middle East. People know about it, between Israel and Palestine and some of the areas over there, the Gaza area they talk about. And I don't know if it feels to me like it's a genocide that's happening.
Which is I know everyone wants to fucking brush it aside and say it's not that significant, but definitely a major point of contention for basically every American at this point. Like, if you're getting outflanked by Theo Vaughn, who literally interviewed Donald Trump, played a role in Donald Trump actually humanizing himself, went to the fucking inauguration, what are you doing? Brutal new data for Democrats on the demographic shifts in the 2024 election. They lost ground or failed to improve with every cohort and sub-cohort, with the exception of a 1-point gain among married white women. Spuds are stuffed potatoes, jacketed potatoes. We did it, Joe. Dude, imagine being so fucking shitty. Imagine being such a disastrously shitty fucking party that the guy who was like, we're going to melt every brown person, was able to make major fucking ground with a bunch of Latino men. The alternative wasn't like, why? Why would anybody fucking vote for the Democrats, man? Why? They are just the gayer and more smug and annoying version of the Republican Party. Why would anybody vote for that? It's like the diet soda version for a country that does not care about getting diabetes. One of the funniest things I hear so regularly is stupid ass liberals that still have the audacity to come in here and be like, Kamala Harris would have been better on Gaza. It's like, bitch, she's not even running for president right now. And it's an incredibly popular issue. She's literally not said a single damn thing until Eden Alexander was released. And then she still was like, awful Hamas terrorist piece of shits. Thank God for our big, beautiful, brave president Donald Trump releasing Eden Alexander from the treacherous grips of Hamas. He was just a simple boy. She has every opportunity. She's not in politics right now. She has every opportunity. If she was this like bold Israel destroyer that you claim she is, she'd probably be out there at least being like, yeah, this is really up that the Trump administration is doing this genocide. I would have actually done something different if it were up to me. She ain't talking about Trump's deportation policies, partially because she also was advancing that same cause, obviously. Kamala Harris is the Jill Stein of the Democratic Party. It's crazy.